Hey guys, welcome to Ask Jungle Scout. This is episode number 10. This is the show where we answer your top FBA questions. All right, I can't believe it's been 10 episodes already. It's been a lot of fun. Time has flown by. I hope you guys are enjoying these sessions. So what I normally do is that I start out by answering some pre-submitted questions that have been submitted to the team. Following that, I'm going to jump into the chat box and answer your questions live. So if you're watching this in a replay later on, then make sure to tune in every Thursday at 2 p.m. Central to come and answer your questions live. But let me jump straight into the questions now. All right, so the first question is from DJD829, who asks, okay, this wasn't something clear to me about the extension. Does the default sort on the extension indicate the order in which the search results appear? As in, the reason we care so much about the top 10 is because that's guaranteed to be on the first page. So what this is referring to is asking, how do we sort the results on the Jungle Scout extension? So you run the extension on an Amazon search page, for instance, and the order of the listings on the extension is essentially just based off of the order that they appear on Amazon. We don't sort it by sales or any other metrics by default. You can sort these by sales, reviews, whatever you like. You can also filter out results. So you could filter out products that have less than 50 reviews or more than 1,000 or whatever the case may be. You can sort and filter these results, but when you initially hit the extension, it just shows you the results as they appear on the page. Now, while you can filter and sort these results, and often I do that, a lot of the time I prefer just to view those results as they appear on the page. And let me explain why. Normally when I'm doing this, I'm doing product research, I'm trying to gauge the demand and the competition on that particular keyword for that particular niche. And the reason I like to leave it as it is because I want to see what the customers see. So when the customers type in that keyword, these are the top 10 listings that they see. So I want to analyze those listings. I don't want to change that order and sort by something else. I want to see what the customers see because clearly, everyone that's there in that top 10, they're doing something right, or there's a reason why they're ranking in the top 10. So I want to be looking at who is in the top 10, and then I'm making a decision on whether I want to compete with that product or those products to see whether I can slip into that top 10 results. So I hope that helps. That's a little bit of background on my thinking when I'm using the Chrome extension. The only thing that I would typically do is in the extension settings, you can turn off sponsored product results. So I typically turn those off so that the very first 10 things that I see are the actual organic listings on that search page. I turn off sponsored products because people can pay essentially to be displayed there. The listings that are displayed under those sponsored products don't necessarily help you gauge how well you can rank organically, okay? So that's just one little thing that I like to do. And just quickly, I'm seeing that there are a few questions being left in the chat box. Thank you guys for that. I will get to those very soon, so keep them coming. All right, the next question is an important question from Raven Green. If you're running both manual ads and automatic ads, aren't you being charged for both when a customer clicks on the sponsored link? For instance, if my default bid is $1 for automatic and 40 cents for manual, would I be charged $1.40 when someone clicks my listing? Please advise. So if I'm understanding this correctly, no. If you've got multiple campaigns set up with the same keywords, you're not going to be charged in both of those campaigns when that ad is displayed. The ad that is displayed will be attributed to one of those campaigns. Essentially, they'll probably both go into the bid auction process, and one of those campaigns will win, whether it's the automatic or the manual. For various different reasons, one of those will win, and that will be the ad that's displayed. So essentially, for your example, you would be charged up to, because remember as well, default bid just means that's the maximum amount you'll pay, not necessarily exactly how much you will pay. But for instance, if those were the bids, you would get charged either $1 or 40 cents. You wouldn't be charged both, because that ad would be attributed to either the manual campaign or the automatic campaign. So I hope that helps. All right, next question from Joe Christopher. All right, hi, do you select the Amazon barcode or the manufacturer barcode in the settings in Seller Central? By default, it is on manufacturer barcode. So if you're referring to creating a listing, you need to choose kind of the manufacturer barcode, or more so the UPC or EAN barcode. If you're brand registered, you can get an exception for this, but otherwise you would need to select either the UPC or the EAN when creating a listing. There's no other way around that. When you're talking about printing a barcode on your product, if you're only selling on Amazon, you can just print the FN SKU barcode, which is the Amazon barcode. I'm assuming that's what you're referencing here. The FN SKU or the Amazon barcode, you can print that directly onto your packaging or just stick that one onto your packaging. That's the only one that you need when sending products into Amazon. Typically, that's the only barcode that I put on my products that I send to Amazon. Next question. All right, this one is from Herlich. Sorry if I got the name wrong. Hey, awesome video. I asked myself, what about keywords that could be potentially profitable but have a low search volume? As I understood you correctly, you just wait for those keywords to create 10 clicks and then look at the ACoS. But what if the few clicks are just because my bid is too low and I am actually not tapping out the keyword's full potential, so to speak? What are your opinions about that? So this particular comment was on an episode of the $1 Million Case Study where Greg and Rolando were breaking down how to optimize your PPC campaigns. So I think what this question is asking is, in the optimization process, I think what Greg was talking about is having some guidelines such as, if you've had 10 clicks on a keyword, but then you haven't had any sales, then it might be time, or 10 or more clicks, but no sales, then it might be time to, either reduce that keyword bid or it might be time to kill it, okay? And so this question is saying, well, what about if maybe you need to give it more time? Maybe if you increase your bid, you'll get more clicks and you'll have a little bit more data to play with. If that's how I'm understanding this, then yeah, I think that's a great point. What Greg was talking about was really optimizing your PPC campaign so that you're not spending a crazy amount of money or wasting a lot of money that's not converting. Really, the idea is if you're getting a lot of clicks, so the first thing you get are impressions. That just means your ad is being displayed, okay? And let's say that's in that number is in the thousands. You're getting thousands of impressions. That's just appearing a lot. The next thing that you're after are clicks. Of all of those impressions, how many people are actually clicking, okay? So that's quite important to note. You know, if you're getting a lot of impressions, but many clicks, then maybe your offering isn't strong enough compared to your other competitors. Maybe your main image doesn't stand out enough. So these are the things you're thinking about when you're looking at these numbers and trying to make sense of it, okay? So you want to make sure that you're getting a good number of clicks compared to your impressions. Then when you're getting clicks, the next thing you want to find out is how many orders or sales are you getting. If you're getting 100 clicks, 100 people saw your image or your listing and they thought that looks interesting and they clicked on it, but then no one purchased, then that means that there's likely a problem on your listing itself. You know, you haven't done a good enough job convincing people to buy. You got their interest, you piqued their interest, but something about your listing wasn't helping them convert. And then you need to kind of break that down. So that's what Greg was referring to when he's talking about optimizing your PPC campaigns, is looking specifically at when you've got a high number of clicks, but no sales, okay? And so I think the example that he was talking about was when you have 10 or more clicks, but 0 sales. But if you would like to let it run longer and accumulate more clicks, then you could bump that number up. You could make that 15 clicks or 20 clicks, or just allow a little bit more time in order to, see if maybe those sales haven't been attributed to that campaign yet. So you can always play with these numbers and, wait a little bit longer. But if it's already getting clicks, then it sounds like your bid is in a good place. Because the question here is, what if you're not tapping out the keyword's full potential? So that's true. You could increase your bid and maybe you get more clicks. So that's something that you can experiment with. You always want to be experimenting with this. You don't necessarily want to always have your default bids, something crazy high like $5 or $10 so that you always win the bid, okay? You might always win the bid and be having, let's say $2 clicks or $2 cost per clicks all the time. But you might be better off dropping your bid down to $1 or 70, let's say 70 cents. You might be better off doing that. You might reduce the number of overall clicks that you get because you're not winning the bid all the time, but you might be more profitable because you're spending less per click and getting the same kind of conversion rate. So you don't necessarily always want the highest bid. Sometimes bringing that bid down is going to be more profitable. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. All right, okay, so this question is from Alan. It says, I'm totally confused between units and pieces. I'm selling paper plates, super light. So if I understand this correctly, I can send 8 packs of 25 pieces in a single carton. Since I'm selling them as a pack of 200, that would only make 1 unit per carton. And if I got this correctly, I need to make the 8 packs additionally wrapped as a bundle and only 1 FN SKU label affixed. Okay, great question. So let me just break this down. Ultimately, if you're selling a product on Amazon, you've got a listing or a variation there, and the product is 200 pieces of paper plates, okay? You need to ship that into Amazon in 1 box, okay? That one package needs to go into Amazon as 1 entire unit, okay? And then, however you want that to go to the customer, that's how it needs to go into Amazon. So it doesn't matter what's inside of that 1 package. You could have your 200 plates in packs of 25 inside of that 1 box, but ultimately you need 1 box with a FN SKU label, like 1 box with 1 FN SKU on that, and that's 1 unit in Amazon's eyes. Doesn't matter what's inside, there's 200 pieces or whatever, but yeah, essentially that serves as 1 unit going into Amazon. Now, when you're telling Amazon how many units that you want to send in, let's say, I'm going to keep the numbers small here because this could get confusing. You want to send in 10 units to Amazon. That's 10 boxes with 200 pieces in them because you've advertised this as a 200 piece set. I'll leave it there. So hopefully I don't get confused with the numbers, but I'm hoping that answers your question and for anyone else that might be kind of confused by this. In terms of the terminology, units and pieces, I don't know if there's any official terminology, but as far as I know, that you just use both of those mean the same thing. It's just the context that's changing here. All right, I'll see if there's any other parts of that I can answer. What would you advise be the best way to wrap them in a bundle? To me, it sounds like you just kind of need one big box that can, whatever size box will fit the 200 pieces of the paper plates. So that's what I do. I just kind of get a box, or there are lots of different packaging companies out there that can kind of help you get that set up. All right. This next question is from Jeff, who says, "Hi, thank you for the video. It was helpful. I'm making bundles at home of 3 completely different items, not just the color or sizes. How would I list those in variations? Would I do the main item as the initial product and just make variations? I don't know how Amazon would know they're in the same box and whatnot." Again, really, it just comes down to however you want these to be sold to the customer, that's how they need to be sent in to Amazon. So Amazon's not going to be opening up the boxes and checking what's inside. Amazon's not going to be receiving boxes of 3 individual items, and they're not going to package them for you or bundle them for you. So if you've got 3 different bundles, you need to kind of package each one accordingly. Okay, and then send each one in with its own FN SKU for each of those variations. So that's how I'd go about it. All right, so Fraz asks, "For my next shipment, I want to use different packaging. Is there a way to do this when creating my shipping plan? It seems like you don't get the option to put product dimensions after the first shipping plan is created." So yes, when you do create a shipping plan, you do need to enter in the dimensions of the boxes that you use. I think you might be correct that once you've created this or you've confirmed it and you've clicked on create shipment, I don't think you can actually go back and adjust the packaging parameters that you've entered. I think if it's a minimal change, if the packaging size hasn't completely changed, I think you'd probably be okay just sending that one in as is. But then the other option would be to kind of delete that shipment and create a new one, and this time make sure you enter in the correct dimensions for your new packaging so that one's all calculated correctly. If you're using Amazon's discounted partner services to ship it in that last length to Amazon, then I would suggest creating a new shipment with the correct dimensions so that it can correctly estimate how much the charges would be. So yeah, I guess to sum that up, what I would do is cancel that shipment, create a new shipping plan with the new packaging dimensions, and then apply those new shipping labels to your shipment. All right, so I think that wraps up the pre-submitted questions to the team. Next, I'm going to jump into the chat box and answer some of your questions live. Okay, Tom says, "Hi Lenny, I just launched my first product last week and started PPC. I've been selling really well so far and already am on the first page. When should I think of increasing my daily budget?" Cool. Well, firstly, congratulations, Tom. That's awesome that you've had a successful launch. Even better that you're making a lot of sales and doing really well. I'd just say increase your budget as soon as it makes sense. If you've got profitable campaigns where essentially you're still making profit even after you take into consideration your PPC costs, then I would increase your budget now. I think personally, I like to be a little bit more aggressive. Even if I'm losing a little bit of money at the start, I tend to err on the side of just kind of keeping the machine going and just kind of, pumping more into my PPC. As long as it's still profitable, or at the start, I don't mind breaking even or losing a little bit of money, because I'm doing that to get initial sales and just kind of get, until my product is starting to rank organically for a bunch of keywords, until it starts to get more reviews. I'd sort of keep keep accelerating and keep pushing. If you haven't received your first payment from Amazon and you're still paying for PPC yourself, like on a credit card or something like that, then you just have to determine, can I afford it yet? But once you start making sales, usually that covers any of your PPC costs. That will all just get pulled out of your sales. And as long as you're keeping an eye on your ACOS, and that number is pretty healthy, I would increase your budget straight away. Okie doke. Let's see what other questions you guys have for me. And welcome to everyone else that is joined. Awesome to see so many people here in the chat. Okay. Okay, Ron asks, how will my product rank on the first page per Amazon algorithms? Really, just to simplify it, best practice essentially is taking the keywords that are most relevant for your product. And Jungle Scout has a great tool called Keyword Scout that will help you do this. You can just type in what your product's called or what you think it's called, and Keyword Scout will basically spit out, these are all the keywords that are related to that and the search volumes. So you might have seen that, you're right on the mark with the keyword that you put in, or other times you might see that there's actually a slightly different keyword that has more search volume. This is the one that people are actually searching for. Identify what your main keyword is, and then put that at the start of your title. Try to weave that keyword and your top keywords into your bullet points and your description. And then you've also got a back-end area within when you edit your listing that you can also add these top keywords into as well. Essentially, you do that. That helps tell Amazon what your product is, and that increases your chance of getting ranked and appearing underneath those search terms on Amazon. Other ways to help assist this are things like PPC, where you can bid directly on those particular keywords. Then as you start to get sales as a result of people typing in that keyword and then clicking your listing, that will essentially help the algorithm and help you rank organically under those keywords. So kind of high level, that's how you rank. And that's how you end up ranking on the first page, is just by pushing sales through on that particular keyword. So I hope that answers your question. All right, let's see. All right, so Allison asks, hi Lenny, could you demo how the new niche hunter should be used and then saved in the product tracker? Yeah, great question. Let me see if I can bring that one up. I didn't have Jungle Scout on my screen, but I will bring that up, or I'll see if I can bring that up and show you, because the tool that Allison is referring to is called Opportunity Finder. It is a really neat tool, and I'll see if I can kind of give you guys a quick demo of how that works, but then I'll get back into some questions. All right, so, all right, you guys should be able to see my screen now. So this is Opportunity Finder within Jungle Scout. It's really great for helping you find and generate product ideas if you have no idea what you want to sell. So I'm going to do a quick demonstration because I don't want this to take too long. In fact, I might just select a few categories here, some of the ones that I like. Let's see. Let's just kind of go with those. Okay, so you got sliders on the right-hand side, average monthly units sold. I like at least 300 units per month. I like products that are at least about $18 or more. The competition, of course, we always want low competition, so I'm just going to go very low to medium. And monthly search volume, so how much keyword search volume do we want? So let's say I want at least like 3,000 to 4,000 searches per month for this particular opportunity. So I've set all that up, so as you can tell, it's pretty quick, and I'm gonna hit search, okay? And yeah, I did wanna do this as a quick demonstration. There will be a video in here to walk you guys through this, but I know we have had a few questions about how to use this tool really well. If you are a Jungle Scout member and you're looking for a product straight after this live stream, I recommend you jump in here and play around with this tool and just follow the steps that I'm showing you now. So we've got all of our opportunities here. What I'm going to do is I'm just gonna look through and find something that stands out to me as a product that's fairly simple, that could potentially, fairly simple, not seasonal, nothing that I think has, you know, any liabilities and so forth. So we've got pumpkin carving kits, which is popping up because it's still, you know, not too long since Halloween. So I know that one would be quite seasonal. So really I'm just kind of scrolling through something like a backdrop curtain, right? So that's something to me that it doesn't spell seasonality, I don't think. I think that's something that people would want all year round. It's also something that, you know, doesn't have too many moving parts like something electronic. So I'm kind of like, yeah, that could be fairly easy to manufacture. It could be something that could be improved on because maybe there are existing ones that, you know, maybe tear very easily or have some problems. It feels like something that you could improve upon. So now what do you do, okay? Let's look at the information that you've got here. So under this particular niche or opportunity, we've got our units sold on a monthly basis. So it looks like we sold 1,000 in September, 1,500 in October, and then more in November. So maybe it is a little bit seasonal. Maybe lots of people are getting backdrop curtains for Christmas. I don't know. So that is one thing that I would look at. Good thing is you can come over to seasonality here. And so this is based off of, I believe this is based off of Google, Google Trends data. So we're seeing how this has trended over the year. So it does look like demand increases in December, but it still looks like it's reasonable all throughout the year. It looks like it holds steady, but there is an increase in December. So if I was seriously considering this, I'd be thinking like, if it was really low all the way through the year and then there was a spike in December, I would rule it out. At this point, I would be interested in kind of pursuing it more, trying to gauge what it would get throughout the previous months. So, you know, more or less it stays fairly similar all the way through October until sort of November, and then it spikes up. So at the moment, we've only got data for September. Based off of the seasonality here, I would say that maybe September is a good reference as to how this product sells throughout the year. So I would say like, okay, maybe you could expect to sell 1,000 units throughout the year, and then it sort of jumps up by, you know, November, December. So that doesn't seem too bad to me. That's one of the things I'd check. And then you can see how the price has changed historically as well. And then we've got a couple of features that are coming soon, which will help you break down the reviews or the competition, and then even help you with sourcing a supplier. But those are still coming very soon. So again, now what do I do? I've analyzed this. It sounds like a great opportunity. I can see the average monthly units, the average price, the average search volume, and it tells me that there's low competition. What do I do next? Well, the next step here is I would take this keyword, backdrop curtain, and then come across to Amazon. And I would search for it here because I kind of want to see what these top listings look like. So I type in backdrop curtain here, whoops, and I'm not logged into Jungle Scout. All right, so sorry that booted me. I think I got booted out of Jungle Scout earlier. But essentially what I'm doing now is I'm looking at the opportunity on Amazon and I'm analyzing the top 10 results. As I mentioned earlier, I'm gonna ignore the sponsored results there because they paid to be there. I'm seeing who's ranking in the top 10. So this guy here is getting 238 reviews. This second listing here is a little bit competitive. This one here is quite competitive. After that, 35 reviews, 45, 47, to 11, and then let's say 24. So it looks like in the top 10 listings here, at least maybe 6 of them or so have low competition, but these top listings here do have quite a lot of reviews. So that does worry me that there are some really competitive listings here. So that's what I'm looking at now. But, for the sake of this example, I'd run the extension. You would see all of this information here. The extension would break down how many sales all of these particular listings get. And if, I would also be looking at the demand, or the sales. If the majority of the sales are going to this guy here that's got nearly 5,000 reviews, then I would rule this product out. But if they were getting a little bit more than everyone else, but everyone else was still getting 200 to 300 sales per month, then that means okay, even though there's one really competitive listing here, it still seems like people are buying these other listings, which means okay, there's still an opportunity for me to rank there. From that point, let's assume that I liked everything that I saw here. Within the extension, you can actually click the little plus button to add these, all of these listings to the product tracker. And so then that would add them to the product tracker here. And I would come in here, I could add them directly from Amazon and then they would just all appear here. What I would do then is just create a new group. And I'd call that, what was it? Curtain, backdrop curtain. I'd create the group and then you could add all of these listings to that group. Or alternatively, I can just do it straight from here by just typing in backdrop curtain. And then this actually brings up all of the top listings here. And I can create and add products. Now I'm tracking these on a more daily basis so that you can get a better idea of how well they sell. So yeah, I'd then be tracking these products and I'd recommend doing that for at least a couple of weeks is kind of my bare minimum to kind of see how they perform on a daily basis. So I know that was a fairly quick demonstration, but that's how I would get from searching on Opportunity Finder to, looking at the opportunity on Amazon, looking at the real listings, and then adding them from there to Product Tracker if I like what I see. So hopefully, Allison, that gives you an idea of how you can best use Opportunity Finder. All right, let me see what other questions we have. Okay, the question is, I'm trying to export all the keywords from my JS keywords list, and I can only export page 1. How can I export all of them in one go? Thank you for the feedback. I do believe at this stage you do need to, you can only export at a one page at a time, but thank you for the suggestion. I'll make sure that's passed on to the product team, and we'll see if that's a feature that we can add in the future. All right. Sargis asks, hi Lenny, would you please give us some info for how to do a proper split test for pictures and with what tools? Great, well a tool that we have or that we own is called Splitly, and it's built just for that to help you split test various elements of your listing. So we can, what we can do is we can drop in, we should have some videos that kind of delve into the specifics of how to set up a good split test, and we can drop that into the chat box. But let me give you a couple of pointers quickly, just at a very high level. So firstly, Splitly is the tool that I'd recommend using. The things that I'd recommend split testing, or the two most effective ones that we've seen, are your title and main image. You can split test other elements like your bullet points, your description, and so forth, but we found those aren't as effective or don't change things as much or have as much of an effect as your title and main image. And that makes sense, particularly like your main image has a huge impact on how many people click onto your listing and then purchase, okay? So those would be at the top of my list, title and main image. Then after that, I'd essentially create two variations, only start with two variations so that you're split testing A against B. You know, it becomes incredibly hard and takes a very, very long time if you're trying to split test more than that at one time. So if you're doing an image, I would get one other image and basically split test the two of those. And the way it works, because Amazon isn't set up, it isn't well set up for split testing. In an ideal world, you would split test or alternate between visitors. So person number one that sees your listing would get one image, and then person number two that visits would get a different image. Amazon isn't set up to be able to do that, so because you can't get specific data on you know, which image a customer viewed. The only way you can do it is you can see how many sales and you can see the conversion rate and all of your information per day. So what we do is that we swap the images or the title and so forth every 24 hours, okay? So on one day you'll get image A, and then on the next day you'll get image B, okay? And typically, to give you a ballpark figure, these tests would need to run at least 2 weeks to accumulate enough data so that it's statistically significant. Essentially just meaning that we can be confident enough that it wasn't a fluke that more people bought from from image B. It wasn't just a fluke that, you know, we've statistically, it's kind of proven or significant enough that, you know, we can confidently say that, you know, one image is better than the other. So yeah, it rotates on a 24-hour basis, usually at least a couple of weeks, and basically Splitly will just do all of this for you. It will tell you approximately how long you're going to need to wait. The only other thing is you do need a good number of sales. I would say you would need a minimum of at least 10 sales per day in order for this to be worth it. If you've only got 3 sales, 5 sales per day, you don't really have enough search volume to get good information. It will take much, much longer. You could be talking weeks, potentially months, in order to be statistically significant. So those are kind of my guidelines, okay? I wouldn't even worry about it unless you've got at least 10 sales per day, but the more sales you have per day, the quicker these tests will run. So hopefully, Sargis, that was able to give you a few pointers or a bit of an idea of how split tests run and some of the things to consider. I suppose the only other thing that comes to mind is, generally speaking, I wouldn't worry about split tests in, you know, the first 2 or 3 months of launching a product. You know, you've got so much else at the start, just trying to launch your product, dialing in your PPC campaigns, figuring out what keywords are best, and all of those things. I definitely see split testing as kind of the next level. So it isn't something I'd worry about immediately, just something when it makes sense to you. Cool. Should I create a new listing on a generic product or piggyback on someone else's catalog? Thanks for the question, Danger Dawn. So here at Jungle Scout, we prefer the private label model. So essentially selling your own product, just kind of taking a generic product and labeling it with your own brand and logo. We like that model because then you own the listing, you control the listing. The profit margins are a lot higher than if you're doing like retail arbitrage or wholesaling someone else's product. If you're wholesaling someone else's product, some brands will require you to basically get approved to sell their product. So there can be that additional step of getting approved. And then you're often competing with other sellers to try to win the buy box. One of the easier ways to help you do that is by offering a cheaper price than your competitors, and it can often become kind of a race to the bottom in price to own the buy box, therefore diminishing a lot of profits. That being said, there are a lot of people that do like those models, a lot of people that have success with like wholesaling or retail arbitrage. However, there are sort of pros and cons to each, but we personally like private label. Okay. Stenson says, can I start my PPC campaign when my product is in FC transfer? Or should I wait to start my PPC campaign until 100% of my product is available at the warehouse? Thank you in advance. Cool, so you can start your campaign already. Essentially, it won't actually become active until your stock is fulfilled or received by Amazon and is available for selling. So it doesn't matter even if you turn it on now, it won't, the ads won't start running until your listing becomes available. So I definitely, if you like, you can turn it on early, and that way the moment the stock becomes available, maybe it's like while you're sleeping, for instance, those ads can begin to run. Okay, let's see. So I got a question here from Liliana. I'm creating a budget for my first product. What are the costs that I should have in mind the most accurate, or to make it the most accurate possible? How much do you recommend to have in mind for ads and extras? Good question. So I'd recommend, we actually have a budget spreadsheet that you can download a copy of yourself. It's in the $1 Million Case Study Season 4. If you look that up here on YouTube, you go to our channel, look up the $1 Million Case Study, you'll see a playlist there for Season 4. And then somewhere, I keep referencing this episode, but I can't remember what the number is. It's got budgeting in the title as well. It's like episode number 7 or 8 or something like that. I think it's like, 6, 7, or 8. If you go to that episode, there'll be a link to a budget calculator which you can download. And then in that episode, Greg demonstrates how to utilize that particular calculator. And so that one's really good because he breaks it down into 2 areas. There's startup costs. These are the things that you'll need just to launch your product. Those initial things like product photography or maybe some design work for your logo, anything like that you might just need one time. The other part of the budget is your sort of ongoing and your unit costs, okay? So that's the one that I'd be kind of the most vigilant with, is making sure you've got a very accurate unit cost. So the things that go into that one, of course, is your unit cost, how much you can purchase that one from your supplier. Then you've got your shipping cost per unit as well. So that might be made up of 2 parts. It might be your shipping cost per unit from the supplier to the US, and then the sort of reshipping cost to get it from the US from, you know, the port, for instance, into Amazon, or if it's, you know, or if you got it shipped to your house from China or whatever, then that last leg. But from that, essentially, you'll get what we call like your landed cost. This is, you know, let's say it's $5 per product from the supplier, and then it might be $2 per unit in shipping. So then you've got $7 for your landed cost. This is where I then think about, are there any other sort of ongoing costs you can build into that? Let's say that you want to get a product inspection every single shipment, which isn't a bad idea. Once you've done that, once you can figure out like, okay, if that cost me, you know, whatever, $400, you might divide that by the number of units that you have, and it might turn out to be like, okay, that works out to be 20 cents per unit. So I would build that into my unit cost. So now it's $7.20 is my total there. The other thing that you can add in there is PPC costs. So what Greg likes to use as a reference here is he adds in 5% for his PPC cost as kind of a rough number. Now, that's different to your ACOS when you're running PPC. Typically, your ACOS would be a lot higher than, say, 5%. But Greg likes 5% because when you spread out, you know, your PPC sales will only be a portion of your entire sales. So when you average out how much you spend on PPC advertising across all of your units, it ends up being closer to 5%, okay? Or if you can choose what numbers you want here. You might want to make it 7 or 8% or something of your sales price, and then just add that into your unit cost. Then the other big one that you would definitely have here is FBA costs. So you can just type in Amazon FBA calculator, and that will take you to a link on Seller Central where you input your sales price and all of your details there, and then that will tell you how much to expect in FBA fees. Now you add that all up, and then you've kind of got your total unit cost, okay? For round numbers, I'm gonna say that's $10. And now you know that, like, okay, it cost me $10 every single unit. I'm selling this for $20, therefore I'm getting $10 profit per unit, okay? So those are the things I'd keep in mind for your budget. And yeah, if you check out that budget spreadsheet, there might be some other things to think about that I've missed. But that budget calculator, I think you'll find really helpful, and will give you lots of ideas in terms of what things to add in your startup costs and your ongoing costs. All right. Okay, the question is, hi Lenny, why can't I add variations after adding a product? Do I need a template to do it? Yes, that's correct. I believe it's a lot trickier to add variations after you've created the listing. So best practice here is if you're creating a new listing, I'd always try to add variations when you first create the listing, because it's a lot easier to do that initially. Even if you don't, you don't have that in stock, or you're not planning to sell that immediately, that will just be unavailable until you want to sell that. I'm not sure if that's by category though, because I do think you can add new variations to some listings. It's not something I do very often, so I don't know offhand. I know in the past it was difficult to add new variations to existing listings, but I think maybe it depends on the category or the product. But yeah, if you don't have access to adding a variation to your existing listing, then you will need kind of to upload a template in order to do that. Okay, let me see if I can get closer to the top. Okay, Okay, Peter says, I found a retail arbitrage item that has a single out of focus photo and no bullet points, none. Should I massively improve this listing with photos and SEO, or do I make another one of my own? Yeah, I guess it depends on the product, but I would make, I would kind of private label my own version of that product. Again, let's see. Okay, I found a retail arbitrage item that has a single out of focus photo. Yeah, I guess I'd look at, I'd kind of like look at the entire opportunity as well and see what other listing, like the first thing I would do is kind of gauge the opportunity as a whole, look up that main keyword and see are there other listings there that, you know, are kind of competitive or not. If it seems like it's very competitive or like there are other competitive listings, then maybe just retail arbitraging on that individual listing might be a better way to go if that listing still seems to get a lot of sales, despite the fact that it's got a single out of focus image. That sounds, that sounds really bad, or it sounds like a great opportunity. You know, you're always kind of wanting to look for, looking for opportunities to improve on existing listings. But yeah, again, I guess I'm a little bit biased. I do prefer the private label model. And so personally, I would make my own listing to kind of compete with that and sell my own product that it has a much better listing and, you know, photos, etc. All right. I'm researching my first product, but I'm finding it really hard. A maximum, or as many of them are quite heavy. Can you give me some suggestions for new sellers? Okay, so maybe one of the things that I'd recommend is when you're using the product database, for instance, you can filter a maximum weight. So yeah, essentially I would make sure, you know, I would basically set a maximum weight so that you're not getting these large oversized products, or quite simply what you could do is under product tier, you could just select oversize. So right here within the product database, you can set a maximum weight, but the easy thing to do otherwise is just to check standard size products when you're doing searches. That way the weight will be lower by default, or it will fit within a standard size category or tier. And as long as it's within standard size, it's less restrictive than the oversized products, which are heavier and a little bit more restrictive. So that's one of the things that I'd suggest. Yeah, otherwise, just in terms of other tips for product research, if you haven't, I would look through some of the videos on the Jungle Scout Academy. If you haven't been there before, there's a lot of great content here. So we're in the Jungle Scout Academy, and I would come down to our selling on Amazon A to Z and go to product research. And so Greg breaks down all of his top product research strategies. He kind of breaks down what to look for in terms of demand, competition, profitability, his first round product selection, all the secondary criteria that he looks at, and how to basically go about it. So I would watch some of these videos. This might help give you some inspiration or at least some motivation to keep going. I just say kind of like stick with it. You will find a good product. You just need to keep plowing through. All right. Hi Lenny, nice to see you again. Nice to have you joining. So thank you for the kind words. Is it possible to run 2 manual exact match campaigns simultaneously for the same ASIN? Or is it only possible to have 1 campaign per type of match per product? I can't think why you would have 2 exact match campaigns exactly the same. So what you might do is you might have two campaigns with the exact same keywords, but different match types. So generally, you would have something different between the two, right? You'd have a variable different. So usually that would be like a match type. One might be all broad, the other might be all exact match, and then based off of that, you can see which keywords perform better in each of those match types. I can't think of any benefits to having two exactly the same campaigns, ultimately. But on that note, I know a lot of people ask, they get worried about competing against themselves if they have the same keywords in multiple campaigns. From my experience, I'm fairly certain that you do not compete against yourself. I've never found that. I know some people still think maybe you do, but I'm pretty certain that like Amazon's smart enough that you don't end up competing against yourself. For instance, if you're bidding $1 and then, or even if you're bidding $1 in two different campaigns, they kind of like bid against each other so that you end up paying more. I don't think that's the case. So that's just another thing to keep in mind that I know lots of people ask about. Okay, so Marco asks, hello, I'm just about to join Amazon FBA. I have an idea for my first product, something that doesn't exist yet. Is this smart to do for a first product? Great question. So typically what we recommend is using data to support the decisions that you make, okay? You can launch a product that isn't already on Amazon, but it's running more of a risk than if you can validate that business decision by saying, look, this product sells 3,000 units per month on Amazon. I know people want it. I don't have to fight to get sales. Because it's really disheartening. You do all of this work, and no matter what product it is, it's always kind of the same amount of work. But, the difference could be you're getting, 500 sales per month versus 2. So if you're gonna do all that work, we highly recommend you just choose products that you know are already selling on Amazon. That is just kind of it's just a much safer kind of approach. Again, you're gonna be doing the same amount of work. You wanna make sure that that work is worthwhile. So the time that I would say to sell something new on Amazon is if it's something that you're really passionate about. Are you looking to build a brand or a company? Maybe it's a product or a market that you really love, whatever. Maybe you're into sports and you want to build a fitness brand or something like that, and your passion is building that in the long term. Then that's maybe where I'd consider it, because that's kind of, where your heart lies. Versus if you're just trying to start Amazon FBA and you just want to make an income stream, then I would not recommend just selling something that isn't already there. So that's kind of how I would look at it. Or the other thing is, if you already have an established audience or you're planning to build an audience, then you can go that way of selling something that doesn't exist. But I just want to let you know it is a lot riskier and potentially a lot harder. All right. Oscar asks, hey Lenny, when do you know when you could stop using PPC campaigns? I prefer to kind of keep them going all the time. More sales, the better. I do think you always want to be optimizing and experimenting with them, but personally, I always leave them running. I never turn them off. All right. Brian says, is anyone else missing Lenny Wise? If anyone else wants to check out Lenny Wise, go back in our YouTube account and check back a couple of weeks ago from Halloween. All right, Roberto says, will there be another season of the $1 Million Case Study? I think I've hinted at this in previous episodes, but I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag because I'm in a good mood, and yes, there is gonna be another season of the $1 Million Case Study. I'm committing to it now. You guys will see that. Don't ask me when it's going to be just yet. So I haven't said when, but we will be doing another one. In the meantime, go back and watch the previous seasons of the $1 Million Case Study to get yourself prepared. All right. Okay, so Cindy says, do you help assisting in getting people up and running with their business? That's a great question. So something that Greg gets asked a lot, for instance, is like, do you do one-on-one training or coaching? And we often get that question here at Jungle Scout. And for a long time, you know, really what our strategy has been to create as much content as we can to as broad of an audience as possible, because we've found that we often just keep getting the same questions over and over. And the time that we would spend one-on-one with somebody teaching them something, we could actually be sharing that with a larger amount of people and helping more people at once. That's why I'm here doing this live stream. That's why we hold our webinars and we create lots of video content. So we try to spend more of our time we try to spend more of our time creating content that will help a broader number of people. That being said, there definitely are advantages to, you know, more structured type education, such as courses, where you can have more of that one-on-one experience. So we are actually looking, we're actually kind of working on our own Jungle Scout course at the moment, which Greg is leading and giving a lot of his insights and a lot of his personal strategies that have helped him launch hundreds of products. So that is actually something that we've got coming up on the horizon. If you follow Jungle Scout or you're a Jungle Scout member, you will hear about that one in the near future. But we don't do it consulting on a one-on-one basis, but we are looking to kind of bridge that gap with some more closed-in type course material, so that you can kind of get more of that exclusive feel and a little bit more of that hand holding, if that's something that you find really helps you. Okay. So Anthony says, I want to learn how to properly contact a supplier. Am I able to get in touch with them through Jungle Scout, or is it better to use Alibaba? So you can kind of do both. Well, let me back up. You can't contact them directly through Jungle Scout. So through Jungle Scout, you can find suppliers and you can find their information, their import history into the US. What you would then do is we've got a button that just says search for the supplier or search for contact information. That will just take you to Google to help you search for that particular supplier's website or contact details. And from there, you would reach out and email them. So really, email is the way that you would go about it, or you can contact them through Alibaba, through their messaging system. It's up to you which way you like to do it. As of late, I have preferred to contact people via email if I can find their email, just because the UI in Alibaba is kind of messy. For anyone that's been in there, you know what I mean. It's kind of hard to find where anything is. All of your messages seem to go into different places, or you click on stuff and it just keeps opening new tabs. So it's a little bit harder to keep track of there. So I kind of prefer to do it via email, where it's a little bit more tidier. So you can do either or. But again, if you go back through the $1 Million Case Study, we do have some best practices for reaching out to suppliers. We've even got a template there of exactly what to say, exactly what questions to ask. And then you can even get some of that within Jungle Scout as well. So if you just come over to Jungle Scout, we're in Supplier Tracker. Let's say you choose one of these suppliers. You can come over to Quotes and then download questions. And we've actually got a bunch of sample questions here to basically inspire you in terms of what you might like to ask your supplier when you're doing your initial outreach. A quick tip, ask as many questions as you can up front. Order them in numbers. That makes it easier for the supplier to reply to you. I wouldn't ask I wouldn't ask all of these questions here, but I'd pick a handful, 5 or 6, or the ones that are most important to you. Definitely be very specific about what you want with the product. Include images is the best thing you can do as well. So those are just a kind of a couple of tips when it comes to reaching out to suppliers. So hopefully that answers your question and I didn't get too off track. Roberto says, what would you consider too competitive? The product I found has an average of 144 reviews. Cool. So again, I would check the top 10 listings on the first page of search results. If all of the top 10 listings had in and around 100 to 144 reviews, I would consider it if there's a good profit margin, okay? With any of these guidelines that we give, there's the ideal list, right? The ideal list is that you always have more than 300 sales per month. You always have less than 50 reviews. You have absolutely zero seasonality, or I guess there's no such thing as 0% seasonality, but it's not highly seasonal. There's absolutely no liabilities or whatever. There's kind of this list of ideals, okay? In practicality, you're usually not going to 100% tick off every one of those things, okay? Sometimes you might have to sacrifice one thing for another. So when I'm sort of weighing those things up, it's like, oh, this one, it's it's got a lot more demand, but it's a little bit more competitive. So it's like, which one would be better? Do I go with this other one that has maybe less demand, but it's also got less competition? When I'm weighing up decisions like that, I would look at what is the profit margin? What's the difference between how much I have to pay per unit and how much I'm going to get back? So looking at that profit margin or the return on investment, I would then maybe weigh up like which product has the biggest difference there, which one has the biggest profit margin per unit. And I would kind of use that to help guide me between these different opportunities. So, to answer your question, I would potentially consider that. I would say that is maybe the top end of competition that I would like. But I would definitely find some other opportunities that are less competitive, and then basically look between those two and kind of go, which one's going to give me more profit margin overall, the less competitive one or the slightly more competitive one. If it's this one here that's a little bit more competitive, then I'd go, okay, maybe I'm willing to, deal with a little bit extra competition because I can get a lot more profit or somewhat more profit. So hopefully that kind of thinking helps you out. All right. Some awesome feedback here from Pillow Guide. I watched the maximum number of your videos. Thanks for your tips. Trust me, I'm getting all of my valuable information from you guys. If I can be a seller, all credit will go to Jungle Scout. Thanks for the really kind words, Pillow Guide. It's awesome to hear that our information is able to help you out. That means a lot, and thanks for letting us know. All right, and just to wrap this up, Alibaba is very clunky. Yes, it is very clunky, unfortunately. All right, let's see. I'm going to refresh my page, but it looks like I might have got to the end of the questions. All right, guys, it's been over an hour. Wow, time has flown. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you've got some value from the questions I've answered. If you have, please do me a big favor and hit the thumbs up just below this video. That tells me that you've liked this content and that I should keep coming back and doing it. If you haven't already subscribed to Jungle Scout, then make sure you do that as well below this video, and even hit the little bell icon next to that so you get notified every time we go live or drop another video. Us Jungle Scout will be back. The regular time slot is Thursdays at 2 p.m. Central. I think today we changed the dates because Greg's actually hosting another webinar this Thursday at 2 p.m. So make sure to check that one out. That's specific to Black Friday. So hint, hint, there may be some deals available if you tune into that webinar. And then I think next week I might actually be coming live on a Tuesday as well because Thursday is Thanksgiving. But otherwise, Thursdays at 2 p.m. Central. Thanks so much for joining me today. Happy selling, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.